Hello guys, I am Andrea Cavalcante de Albuquerque, and I'm here to tell you about my experience abroad. Okay, it's pretty different. I was born in Rio de Janeiro, Brazil, Copacabana, and I went to the United States when I was 3 years old with my parents because my parents got offered a job there in Beverly Hills, in California, and I grew up in California first. Then, after I was about 10 or 11 years old, we moved to Washington, D.C., and that's where I studied elementary school, middle school, high school, and college. And then we moved to Maryland, got an apartment, started working, and recently, not that recently, but in 2007 I came back to Brazil because we bought some land here and we now have a coffee farm. So we're working on expanding that. So that's why I came back, to deal with the issues relating to the farm. But I miss the U.S. When I arrived in Brazil, I just felt like I was an outsider because I've been away for about more than 20 years, you know, and to come back, it felt so different. And like in Portuguese, there's so many inside jokes, you know, like tira seu cavalinho da chuva. Like, it took me a while to understand, like, what are they talking about? Like, what horse is in the rain? Like, you know, vai plantar batata, vai catar coquinho. Like, I didn't understand these terms because in English there isn't that many like that, you know, there isn't any jokes like that. So it was very hard to adapt at first, but I got used to it, and day by day it started getting easier. But the experience that I had in the U.S. was fantastic. If you're thinking about going abroad, do it. You know, it's incredible, especially when you go to Washington, D.C. and the states alongside, like New York, New Jersey, the areas where you'll experience snow. And if you've never seen snow before, it's amazing. There aren't enough words to describe the experience that you will have when you get there and you experience a winter or a Christmas in the U.S. You know, it's really worthwhile. I recommend it. And if you go to Boston or California, you know, Boston, you'll probably feel more comfortable because there's a lot of Brazilians there, you know, a lot of people in Boston that speak Portuguese, so you won't have that barrier up front of the English language there. California is really good for Brazilians to adapt because there is no snow and the weather is similar to Brazil, so you won't experience any, you know, hard times in reference to weather, cold weather, you know. But I recommend it so much. I mean, I've lived in California, Washington, D.C., and Maryland, but I was able to have a car while I was in the U.S., and I drove everywhere. Like, I drove to New Jersey, I drove to New York, I drove to Philadelphia, Chicago, and it's amazing. It's like, it's the best experience that you'll probably ever have. And Disney. If you're focused on going to Disneyland or Disney World, because there's Disneyland in California and there's Disney World in Florida, and they're both amazing. Like, you'll never experience a theme park better than Disney, you know? I mean, it's so worth it, and I recommend it for anybody. you know. And if any of you guys have any more questions about a specific area in the U.S. that maybe I've been to, feel free to contact me, let me know, and I'll be glad to talk about it. And I hope to go back maybe this year to Las Vegas. You know, I've never been to Las Vegas, and it's somewhere that I've been wanting to go for a very long time, so keep my fingers crossed for that one. All right, and thank you for listening.